Hello everyone, myself I am Dr. Parves Mohammad, working as Assistant Professor in Marri Laxman Institute of Technology and Management, Hyderabad. So here, today's session, we are going to discuss about Introduction to Data Science. So data science is a new subject. This subject is all about the how data is going to be processed, how data is going to be manipulated with statistical operation, business operation, and how data is going to be processed in multi levels with the help of matrices, vectors, and other factors and other operations. Okay, so in today's session, we are going to discuss about introduction to data science, challenges in data science, what is a data scientist, and major changes in the data science. So here in the data, as already you know, we are all familiar with the DBMS, database management system. So as a data, we will say that data is a collection of facts, things, and objects. We'll say like this: collection of facts, things, and objects. So this data is going to be processed in multi-level organizations. Where it is going to be processed in multi-level organizations, the data science can be applied. The data science can be used. Okay. So we will take the help of big data analytics. While data science is used, the data science is dependent on the big data analysis. That means big data analysis can be used with the help of data science. And the data science, why we are using this data science, that we are going to discuss in today's session. And data science, of course, it has different types of data usage, data analysis, data predictions. And as a data scientist, a person who research on the data, he is called a data scientist. As a data scientist, he can work with various types of database operations. He can analyze the data, we can predict the data, and he can perform different types of operations. Okay, so in today's class, we are going to discuss all these factors, all these things. That's in the introduction to data science. So you just look a slide of this particular class. There is lots of data is going to be used in organizations. We have lots of data is going to be processed. This lots of data that can be processed in the form of web data, it can be processed in the form of e-commerce data. The data can be processed in financial transactions, bank credit and debit transactions, online trading and purchasing transactions, and other social networks. We have different types of social platforms. There also the data is going to be processed. So lots of data has been used in multiple locations, in multiple resources. You see some of the pictures, diagrams which I given here. The globe, which tells that data is there everywhere in the world. Data is all around. Data is there anywhere. We are not supposed to work with the data in only particular place. The data is there in everywhere. Wherever we are working, wherever the organizations are working, wherever the people are involved, so the data is there. So without the data, we are not going to be process any type of operations. If data is there, then only we will perform different types of operations. So that's the meaning of this one. And the data can be used in a high form. Okay, so web data is the first example that I have taken. Web data, the web data which refers, it's a vast amount of data which work with text, images, user interfaces, and other transactional data. Web data is all about the text, images, user interfaces, and different categories of the data that can be processed in the web data. And in the form of e-commerce data, the data science in e-commerce data, multi levels of e-commerce applications. There are various types of e-commerce applications. All these e-commerce applications that can be process our data. Our data is not belongs to a specific place. It's widely used with the help of various types of e-commerce platforms. Okay, so the e-commerce platform that have marketing platform, inventory platforms, okay, profitable platforms, organizations, social media organizations. There are different types of e-commerce portals. So there also the data is there. If you have the data, then only you can process. To purchase any type of product from the e-commerce, we need to refer the product review. So for that you require data. If data is there, then you will process. If the sufficient data is not available, then we are not going to process that item. So it's all about the data processing in huge level. So whenever the data is going to process in huge level, we will say that it is a data science application. Either it may be belongs to data science application, or else it may be belongs to data warehouse. So data warehouse also same. The data warehouse where it perform multiple transactional data that can be processed and stored in a specific place, that is called data warehouse. Okay, and we will perform some operations. That operations are called CRUD operations. CRUD operations are create, read, update and delete. It is basically a database operation. It is also there in the SQL. If you look after structured query language, there also we have CRUD operations. So here the SQL denotes that creating table, working with the table, manipulating table, and performing many operations on the table, that all belongs to CRUD. That is called create, read, update and delete. That is the meaning of CRUD, CRUD operations. Okay. Then here, next, we have DBA. DBA is their database administrator. The database administrator which is used to process the data in multi levels. Okay, there is an administrator who used to control, supervise and process the data. The database administrator role is used to control the data, supervise the data, manage the data as well as process the data in the organizations. That person is called as a DBA. And data scientist, this is very important. This topic is related to our data science. Majorly it is related to data science. So what will be a data scientist? A person, a professional who work truly on the data, who predict the data, who analyzes the data, and who purely works on the specific amount of data. That person is called as a data scientist. So here we have an example, we have a definition here. A data scientist is a professional who analyze large, complex and unstructured data to extract the actual insights, patterns and trends, supporting strategic decisions making and perform various types of operations on the data. Basically, a data scientist can be used in Python programming, R programming and SQL programming. SQL is a structured query language. Next, we have R programming. Data science is related to R programming. And of course, in Python programming also, a data scientist can be used. So, where a scientist who works much more on the data and he predicts the data. That's the meaning of the data scientist. And what is a R? We are using R programming, one language. This R is one type of programming language which is purely used in the data science, and it is one type of open source programming language. Okay, so here definition is there. R is a free open source programming language and it is a software environment that primarily works with statistical computing, data analysis and data visualization. Okay, statistical computing, data analysis and data visualizations that can be processed in the R programming. That's the meaning of R programming. R programming purely it is used in the data science. Next, how much data we have per day? How much data we are using regularly? The people who are involved with the data, maybe you are using text data, maybe you are using audio data or video data or any pictures, images data, maybe you are using any type of structured data. There are different types of categories. There are different types of structures on the data. Don't think that a plain text is only data. A plain text is not a data. It's a one type of data. It's a data. Of course, it is also one type of data. Not only that, we have so many categories. So many combinations are there. So many categories are there. Okay. So all these categories that are belongs to the data science. Okay. So Google process 20 petabytes per day. If you take a Google that is processing 20 petabytes per day, and Facebook is almost processing 60 TB, 60 terabytes per day, and eBay and other applications they are processing 50 terabytes per day. We have bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, hexabytes, petabytes. Okay, zettabytes. Like that, we have different categories of the data. If you look after Google, that process 20 terabytes. It's more than terabytes. Presently, we are using TB in our memory systems and laptops. We are using what we call terabytes, TB, 1 TB hard disk drive. So more than TB is called PB, petabytes. So Google process 20 terabytes per day. That much large amount of data we are processing per day. Okay, that comes under the data science. Next to big data. Big data works with what? Big data works with various categories of the data. It works with a Mongo database also, MANGO, Mango database also, and it also works with various categories like triple V, volume, velocity, and variety of the data. Volume is nothing but the size of the data, how much size we are using, and velocity is nothing but the latency of the data, how much data is going to process related to the growth and demand for the data, and variety and complexity. There are different types of sources. There are different categories of the data. That categories of the data is belongs to variety and complexity of the data. Here we have a diagram. If you look after this diagram, data volume, data velocity, and data variety. If you look after data volume, in the data volume, we have kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes are there, and PB, petabytes are there. These are all the categories on the data. These are all the categories. All these categories are comes under data volume. So that much data volume, I told you just now, after terabytes, we have petabytes. So that much volume of data we are using. Then data variety. In the data variety, we have audio data, video data, web data, photos are there, mobile apps are there, SMS are there, social tech applications are there, marketing applications are there. These all comes under data variety. Okay, so as I told you already, don't think that only a plain text is a data. So data may be in any format. You are using a WhatsApp, for example. There you are sending text, one type of data. There you are sending audio, one type of data, audio recording. There you are sending videos, one type of data. There you are sending some images, one category of data. There you are sending some video clips, that is one type of data. Recording you are sending, one type of data. So there are different categories of the data. All these categories of the data, cumulatively, it comes under data variety. So it belongs to the variety of the data. And next, velocity. Velocity, these three are the basic operations of data science: variety, volume, and velocity. Okay, anyone you can write first. You can write volume first, then you can write variety, then you can write velocity. So in the velocity form, we have real-time applications, and all these real-time applications, near the real-time, periodic data is there, batch processing data is there. There are different categories of the data that comes under the data velocity. Okay, next, what type of data we have? What type of data we have usually? We have relational data, we have data, we have DBMS, database management system, we have RDBMS, it's a relational database management system. We have web data. Web data belongs to the web pages. It comes under text category. We have semi-structured data, that is called XML. We have HTML, XML, HTML, DHTML, XML, like that. HTML web category applications are there. So apart from that, XML is also one category of the data. Graph data, graphical data. So that graph data is also belongs to the variety, one type of category of the data. Then we have social network, semantic web resources of the data. There are different types of social networks and semantic web resources are there in the data. Then we have streaming data. Streaming data is important. Streaming data is what? A streaming data is a data, the data which plays, which performs, it's on the trending data. So whatever the videos, whatever the text, whatever the trending information you are getting, on screen trending information, what you are getting, that comes under streaming data. Okay, next, there are different types of aggregations of the data, like OLAP, online analytical processing data is there, data warehouse is there, indexing and searching, and performing indexing of the data. We have to do different types of indexing on the data. And next we have to search, that is called searching of the data. We have to perform various types of search operations on the data. Then we have querying data, querying, performing different types of operations on the table, that comes under querying data. And here we have data mining. Data mining is also important. Data mining, where we are digging, where we are working with a complex large amount of data, that comes under data mining. Okay, so the data mining is also belongs to the data science applications. Now, what is a data science usually? A data science is an area where manipulates, extracts, interrupts, and work with the knowledge or different categories of the data. That is called a data science data. So a data science data that may be having different forms. Next, see a diagram. In this diagram, we have different multidisciplinary concepts of the data. You look after here, if you look after here, if you look here, statistical data is there, visualization of the data is there, pattern recognition data is there, then we have neurocomputing data is there, and as we know, that is called machine learning data. Machine learning data is also there, and data mining. Okay, KDD, here one point is there, that is called KDD. This is called knowledge discovery data. KDD, knowledge discovery data. So that data is also there. And we have other categories: A, application data, database data, DWH, data warehouse data, and there are multidiscipline. There are different categories where our data is going to be roam, where our data is going to be processed. Our data is not at all belongs to a specific domain. Don't think that DBMS is only database system. Instead of DBMS, we have RDBMS, we have ORDBMS, we have data mining, we have DBA, we have DWH, data warehouse, we have data science, we have big data, Hadoop technology, big data. There are different types of multidisciplinary data concepts are there. All that multidisciplinary data concepts are belongs to the property of the data only. They are the purely belongs to data science. They are purely belongs to data science. It comes under data only. So these are all the various types of multidisciplinary database concepts. Okay, and next one more diagram. As I told you just now, some specific categories are defined here. If you look after specifically data science only, if you look after on particular data science, then that data science will work with these categories of the data. One is engineering data, scientific data, mathematical data, statistical data. These mathematical statistical data applications are there in our data science. It is there in the upcoming units. There we have matrix operations, vector operations, factor applications. We have statistical approaches like mean, median, mode, statistical operations. There are so many categories of the data is there in data science that we are going to discuss in upcoming classes. Advanced computing data, okay, data visualization, and hacker mindset, and domain expert, specific domain expert. If you are using only social data, that is a social domain network. If you are using only e-commerce data, that comes under e-commerce network. If you are using only specific web applications data, then it is called a web application domain. So like that, there are different categories of the domains are also there. Next, see a data scientist. Now he is a data scientist. What he is doing? A 21st century person who works on the data, who predicts the data, who analyzes the data, and who works much more on the data, then he is a data scientist. Okay, a data scientist that may realize the data and he realize the opportunities. He work with various complex categories of the data. He process the data and he perform various operations on the data. That is a data scientist. And why he is performing all this data means he is performing the data to take the proper decisions in the organizations. To take a proper decision in the organization also, we use a data scientist, okay, for taking valuable decisions at right time. Next, we have data science in various levels like national security forces, they are using our data science. Cyber security people, the persons who are working with ethical hacking, cyber security operations, that people also they are purely dependent on the data. If they have data, if they have CCTV footage, if they have videos, if they have a proper data, then only they can work on that. They can identify the thefts, they can identify the crimers who done different types of crimes. So they can do different types of operations. For cyber security people also, our data science is much more used. Business analytics, third one is first one national security data, second one cyber security, third one business analytics. Business analytics, they are using different categories on the data. And engineering data, healthcare, this is a big domain. Healthcare, in healthcare, lots of data is going to be used, lots of data is using already. So to predict the diseases, to analysis on the diseases, to invent different types of new medicines, new drugs, okay, new medicines, then we need a data, we need a statistical reports of the patients. If you have that statistical data in your hand, then you can do much more research on the healthcare. So in healthcare organization also, in healthcare domain also, our data science will play an important role in order to get new inventions, in order to achieve new medicines, in order to solve different types of complications in the data science, different types of complications in the healthcare department. The data science is much more used. That is the meaning of this one. And concentrations on the data, much morely it is concentrated on the mathematical data, okay, and applied statistics and data analysis of the data. Then solid programming skills like C language, C++, Java, Python, R programming, SQL, okay. So and one more is there, okay, one more is the MongoDB, new latest language, that is MongoDB. There also we are using the data mining operations, database system operations, machine learning and discovery operations. In all these aspects, we are using the data science. Okay, and data manipulations. Data manipulation is a common thing in our data science. It is related to DBMS also, where we are performing different types of modifications and reassigning on the data. Either you may perform modifications on the data, or else we can perform reassigning of the data. That comes under the data manipulations. Next, data manipulations purely dependent on the data science. It may work with the different types of database applications, and a data science that allows the user to perform various types of operations on the data and to perform different changes on the data also. If you want to do modifications on the data, performance on the data, then we'll go for data science operations. Okay, so these are all the different categories: data manipulations, data scientific applications, concentrations on the data, web data, national security on the data, cyber security on the data, and performing engineering operations on the data. In engineering science also, we are using much more data. Nowadays, the engineering science data, healthcare science data is performing a high role. It's performing a good role. Basically, the healthcare data, which is purely used for identifying and diagnosis of the patient's diseases. To identify a patient diseases, we need a pure report. That report itself is one type of data. It tells that how much data is going to be processed, how much data is going to be used. Okay, so that comes under this category. Clear? So these are all the various types of data science operations, and all these operations which are purely belongs to our data science. And as I told you previously, the data velocity, the data variety, and the data value, how much category, how much data you are using, whether you are using terabytes data, petabytes data, megabytes data, kilobytes data, gigabytes data. So how much category of the data we are using, that is also important. So nowadays, per a day, averagely, in a average per a day, a person who is using almost more than 1 GB above data, a person is using 1 GB, 1.5 GB, 2 GB data is a common nowadays. So a person who is using much more amount of data per a day. We don't have any limits. And one more point I want to tell, the data is not that much costly. It is not that much heavy cost. Previously it was there, but when rapid changes are occurred in the data science, the data is become very cheap, very easy to share, very easy to manipulate, very easy to retrieve. and very easy to process. So this many rapid changes are occurred in the data science. Okay, and web data is much more. Web data is performing a good role. E-commerce data, web data, graphic data, scientific data, business applications data, like that it's performing a high end roles. Okay, so the XML is purely belongs to extensive markup language. That extensive markup language which works with web data, it work with HTML data and e-commerce data that is working with various categories, various platforms, web portal platforms. So front end we are using application, we are using a specific app on front end, on mobile screen, on laptop. You are using a application front end, but back end a specific data is stored, a big database system is used, okay, for that e-commerce tool. That e-commerce tool itself is using a big database. If they are not using database, they can't survive, they can't give right product to right people at a time. Clear? So to process the different categories of their business, they are purely dependent on the data science, and data science is a one part of the database system only. So without using data, without storing data, without maintaining proper data in the database, they are not unable to continue, they are unable to process. So their business is purely dependent on the data science only. If they have data in their hand, they can process. They need to give review, they need to give right product, they need to maintain your product details, they need to maintain your account details, they need to maintain your transaction, whether your money is uh, cash was paid or not, mode of payments, order details, product ratios, product reviews, product purchased or not, item was delivered or not, everything they have to maintain. So 99% they are purely dependent on the database only. They are dependent on the database. If they are using database, then they will survive. If they are not using, they are unable to survive in the organizations, in the society. So that's a big usage of the data science. Okay, so as I told you already, multidisciplinary concepts are there. Our data science is not belongs to a specific domain. Our data science belongs to various domains. It is not at all belongs to a specific operation. There are different types of operations. Roles are there. There you have to process, that comes under multidisciplinary data. A multidisciplinary data that can be visualize the data, process the data, and perform business operations. Domain knowledge of the data, domain specific domain. We are purely working on that specific domain that comes under domain knowledge of the data, statistics of the data, and pattern recognitions of the data, and AI tools we are using to perform much more data in a fast format. We are using AI tools. With the help of these AI tools, much more data rapidly it was used, and it is processed in fraction of seconds. So with that, what is happening? The much more data usage is increased, and new technology tools are also adapted. And with these new technological tools, our data is much more rapidly it was used. And wherever you go, wherever you process, if you have sufficient data, then you can survive. If you don't have data, then the organizations cannot be survived. Okay, so data is the basic operation. Data is there. If data is there, then only database system can be exist. If data only not there, then there is no chance of database system, and there is no possibility of the organization. Clear? That comes under multidisciplinary database. And here, as I told you previously just now, domain specific data, scientific data, engineering data, mathematical data, statistical data, advanced computing data, data visualizations, hacker hacker. If you want to do a hacker people also, if they have sufficient data then in their hand, then they can do hack on the data. They can hack your mobile, they can hack your device. They can perform much more operations on you. If they don't have authentications, if they don't have authentications, if they have your authentications in their hand, they can adopt your total information. If they don't have proper authentications in their hand, then they can't touch, they can't use your data. So these are all the different types of database operations. All these operations which are belongs to data science. a data scientist in 21st century, a data scientist is purely dependent on the data science only. It's purely dependent and works with the various types of database applications only. Okay, so these are all the different categories which are belongs to the introduction to data science. And okay, so this is about the today's session. I am concluding here with the data manipulations. In upcoming session, again we are going to discuss new concepts in the data science. I hope you understood. See you next time. Thank you.